there's a video I posted. It was my fourth video I post on TikTok, and it told my story, and it went viral. And I was weeping because I was like, for me to press post on that video took so much courage, and I almost didn't do it about 5,000 times.
Yeah.
And then I did. And then for the reaction to happen that happened was, it was a little validating, I'll admit. But also I was just in awe that I was not alone. I was so not alone that this many people cared about it. They started following me. So I think I'm just so grateful that this happened to me. I lost my purpose. I did the work to try to figure it all out. And now I'm doing the thing that I think I should be doing, but I'm still not totally clear on the path. I'm just doors are opening and I'm going through them. But that it's happening and things are moving. And so I'm just very grateful for this opportunity.
Welcome to Tried and True with a Dash of Woo, where we blend rock solid tips with a little bit of magic. I'm Renee Bowen, your host, life and business coach, and professional photographer at your service. We are all about getting creative, diving into your business, and playing with manifestation over here. So, are you ready to get inspired and have some fun? Let's dive in. Hello, welcome back to Tried and True with a Dash of Woo. I am your host, Renee Bowen, and today's an extra special day here on the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, because today marks my 52nd episode since I started the podcast. So I have been producing a weekly show for 1 full year, and that's a big accomplishment. So I'm going to do what I'm always telling you guys to do. I'm going to take my own advice and I'm going to pat myself on the back, because this has not been easy. I mostly have done this by myself. I do have a little bit of help here and there, but I have basically been producing the show on my own. And it has been a really amazing experience as far as a learning experience, hands down, just kind of throwing yourself into the fire, which is what I like to do in general. I want to just experience it, and not try and make it perfect. So I hope that that could be a little inspirational to some of you guys. If you have something that you've been wanting to do and maybe you feel like it has to be just right or just perfect, it doesn't. You can just start. And, by no means is this show perfect or where I would, love for it to eventually be. But hey, a year in and I'm doing pretty good. So I just wanted to share that with y'all. I am really excited to continue to, be able to do this for you and to provide this kind of free resource, and be able to connect with a lot of you guys, which has been really, really, really fun. So in honor of my 1-year anniversary for Tried and True with a Dash of Woo, I am doing a giveaway. All the details will be in the show notes, but here's the deal, basically. So I would love for you to share the show with someone, or just on your feed on Instagram. If you think that it's impactful, send them a link, that kind of thing. But there's a couple little stipulations on what I'm doing for the giveaway. So I do want to outline that really quickly for you. So first of all, if you haven't left a review or a rating, go ahead and do that. That's the first step. And it's super easy to do that. You just go to ratethispodcast.com/Renee Bowen. And again, the link is below. So that's going to bring up a menu where you can rate it on the platform that you listen to it on. So that makes it a little bit easier. Obviously, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you can just go down and, hit that link. It's pretty easy. So definitely on one of the podcast apps, not necessarily YouTube, go ahead and leave a rating and a review. If you've already done that, you don't have to do that step. Okay. You can still enter the giveaway because there's a couple more steps involved. So then you're going to want to go to Instagram and make sure you're following me at Renee Bowen. And then you're going to post about this on your story. So it could be anything you want. It could be a screenshot of the latest episode, whatever. It could be one of my reels talking about my podcast, whatever you want to do. You don't have to show up in this piece of content. Okay. You can do a repost, but the deal is that you are saying something about it, on your story about why you listen, what you find valuable, etc. And you have to make sure that you tag me so that I can see you and enter you into the contest. Okay. So this contest is going to go for a full week because I know not everybody listens on, the day that the show airs, which is on Wednesdays. So it's going to be from this Wednesday today through next Wednesday. And by then I will go ahead and, look at all the entries and contact the winners after that. So you also will get an extra entry for every time you post. So if you want to post about it multiple times during that week, go for it. Just make sure you tag me so that I can take note of that and make sure you get all those extra entries. Again, I'm going to outline all of this for you guys in the show notes. So just make sure you read that or in the description on YouTube if you watch on YouTube. And you guys can win some pretty awesome prizes. Y'all know how much I love White House Custom Color. They are my lab. So if you're a photographer, you can win one of their custom albums, which is amazing. It's worth like minimum $250, something like that. So it's a really, really cool thing to win. If you're a photographer, that will be really fun. They were kind enough to send that in for me and sponsor this little giveaway. So that's super amazing. I'm also giving away a coaching package. This is a coaching package that includes 2 coaching calls. They have to be used within the span of 6 weeks. So there are a little bit of stipulations for that, but this is worth over $2,000. So this is good if you need life coaching, business coaching, a little bit of both, something that you want to really dig into in your business that you need help with. Let's get you some really awesome clarity. And if you've been wanting coaching and you have not been able to afford that, this is an amazing opportunity for you. I'm also giving away a 3-month membership to Elevate, my monthly membership for photographers. And you don't have to be a senior photographer. There's a lot of other photographers who are in there as well. A lot of them, shoot various different niches. And it's based in marketing and mindset. So you're going to get a monthly call and lots of other stuff in your portal. So that is a $49 a month value, and you'll get 3 months for free. I am also giving away the Creative Team Method, which is worth $997. And that is going to teach you how to start or revamp your creative team, meaning your senior rep team. If you're a high school senior photographer, this prize is particularly for you because it will teach you how to start an ambassador team or turn your team into one that actually is profitable, meaningful, and actually gets you booked. So again, if you are a senior photographer, that one is specifically for you. And I am going to be checking to see who is who when we do these giveaways. So, for instance, if I do the random poll, because I'm going to use random number generator for the contest, but if I pull somebody and it looks and I can see that you are not a photographer, then I will move on to another prize for you instead. Okay. And I'm also giving away a couple of Audible books, some of my favorites, or you can tell me if there's something on your list that you've been wanting. If you need any suggestions, I'm happy to give that to you. But yeah, lots of giveaways this whole week. It's going to be like Oprah. You get an Audible book. You get a coaching call, all kinds of different things. It's going to be really, really fun. I'm super excited to even just like be here with you guys. I'm excited to celebrate this really, really big milestone. And thank you guys so much for tuning in and being a part of this. I wouldn't do it if it weren't for you. So today you guys are in for a really awesome treat. My guest today is a super creative, really fun, down to earth, really inspirational person. And I found her on TikTok, as I find most of the people that I love. But it turns out that she's local to me. So we're actually going to get together in person soon. And I'm really excited about that. Lizz Rantze is a storyteller and a creator. She spent the last 2 decades telling other people's stories, first as a barely employed actor, and then as a much more successful editor and creative director, running her own creative studio for over 10 years. But in the process of crafting other people's stories, she completely lost sight of her own. In 2020, when the world stopped, her mental and physical health started suffering until she stumbled upon an old journal with a scribbled quote, "You design your life." Those words helped spark a series of changes. As Lizz became systematically changing the direction of her life, she shared pieces of her adventure on social media. And to her surprise, her quirky little videos were resonating with audiences all around the globe and inspired a bit of a following. This experience reminded her of the power of storytelling and its ability to help us not feel so alone as humans. So today, Lizz continues designing her life and sharing her story by creating cinematic moments out of the mundane, all with the goal of designing lives we are proud of, having a laugh, leaving this world a little bit more beautiful than we found it. So at the time of this recording, she has almost 62,000 followers on TikTok, and some of them have gone pretty viral. Nancy Myers even shared one of hers. It was really exciting. We talk about that. We talk about a lot of different things, her process, how she sort of views creating videos, and how she does a lot of things that most creators will tell you you shouldn't do. So she does things very differently in her own way, and it works really well for her. And I think that is a fantastic example for a lot of us. But regardless, you're going to love her and you're going to love following her. So all of that information is in the show notes as well. And I'm really, really crazy excited to introduce you guys to Lizz. Lizz, I have so many questions for you. We're going to just start at the beginning and see how far we go. Okay.
Let's do it.
Yes, I'm so excited to chat with you. What inspired you, first of all, to start creating the kind of content that you make? I just wonder, have you always been like this? Have you been were you running around with a video camera as a kid? Or how did you know you had a knack for it? Just kind of walk me through that process.
Well, there's a few things there that you asked. But the first thing is I always loved storytelling. I'm so sorry. Can we stop for 1 second?
Absolutely.
I just got a crazy hot flash. So sorry.
Oh,
I think
those
I'm
are
a little
so
nervous, but I think I'm good. Let me just take a sip of water and I'm
no pressure.
Oh, okay. We had a real moment. We're getting to know each other right off the get here. Woo!
Look, I am anxiety queen. Okay. I lived my life with panic attacks for years and years. I'm a Virgo. I overthink, you name it. That's why I became a life coach, because I went through all of that stuff and I still do. So I totally get it. Plus, I went through menopause really early, and that's super fun because hormones are awesome when they start going against you. Yeah, that's great.
They are. I know. I feel like that's part of what I'm dealing with is my body's who knows? There's a full moon coming.
Yes. And it's a full moon in Virgo. So hold on to your shit. Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Okay, let's do that again. I'm sorry. I'm ready now. We got it.
Good. You're good.
We asked a few good questions there. So kind of start from the beginning. Storytelling was definitely something I was always drawn to as a kid. I loved movies. I think a lot of us 80s kids were kind of raised by movies. I would rewatch them, memorize them. And then I started falling in love with dance. I discovered music videos at that same time. And I was like, okay, maybe this is what I'm going to do. Maybe I'm going to be a backup dancer. Maybe I'm for Janet Jackson specifically. Or maybe, and I would get these ideas in my head, these music video ideas, but I had no skills to execute anything. Mm-hmm. So dance morphed into theater. Theater morphed into video production and editing. Editing, I was like, wait a minute, I can create the story. I can make this idea in my head become a reality. And that completely blew my mind. I fell in love with it. And I started a creative studio. And I was running a creative studio for about 10 years. 2020 hit. And things were going for me. The creative studio was doing well. I have a beautiful husband. We were building a house together. And I was pushing 40. But at the same time, I looked at myself and I was like, okay, I'm probably the most mentally and physically unhealthy I've ever been in my life. And then one day I remember clearly I was sitting at the computer and I had this moment of what am I doing this all for? I don't know what my purpose is here. I'm not happy. And not in the sense of like, I didn't want to be here, but more in the sense of I have been chasing a to-do list for the past 10 years, never once asking myself, what do I want to do? What am I contributing to the world? Do I have anything to contribute? And so that was a wonderful, enlightening moment. However, now we're in 2020. So I'm just sitting at home. The world is in turmoil.
Uh-huh.
And I have nothing to do but look in the mirror and figure this thing out. So I did. I went on a 2-year long journey of literally from the ground up, kind of rediscovering myself. And through the conversations I was having with friends and therapists and
Yeah.
family on Zoom, I realized that my story wasn't exceptional. And the fact that a lot of people at some point go through this feeling lost. And that would have been so helpful for me to know at the time, because it can feel so lonely to
Oh,
feel that
yeah.
way. So I thought, wait a minute, what if when I was trying to kind of rediscover my purpose, I was like, what if I take my skill set? I'm only qualified to be a creative. That's the only thing I've been trained in. I was like, what if I take my,
Only as if it's okay, right? Like I only have this amazing brain, but continue.
you know what I mean?
I
Um,
know, totally.
so I was like, what if I take this skill set and then
Yeah.
I create something that perhaps could help somebody out there, at least one person. And so I started to do that. And that's kind of where we are today.
Yeah. Okay. This is like such a great, and I think this is one of the reasons why your content resonates so well with people, because
Mm.
it comes from that, your purpose, you finding, rediscovering this purpose, right? And like, um, it's universal. So many people, and I speak to creatives a lot, obviously, and I am one, and I definitely see this as a common theme that a lot of us either are going through right now or went through in 2020. Like it was such a catalyst for sure.
Mhm.
And I feel like maybe we go through it over and over again too sometimes, right? I've been at this long enough where I feel like this is like my third generation of going through like, well, what am I doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
continuously having to like, you get stuck in this rut of like, oh, I love what I'm doing. And then you get into it and you start making money and you're like, this is great. And then I'll like a few years in, you're like, this sucks. And I want to burn it down to the ground. So, it's like, I feel like this might be part of our curse of being creatives too,
Right.
but you're right. There's so much power in speaking about it and to other people about it, because, it is lonely to feel that way.
Hmm.
And you feel like, oh my God, this is just me, but it's not. So I do think that that's why that sort of resonates. And you have this messaging in your content, you design your life, right? So like, did that come out of this, discovery process for you? That's definitely also what drew me to your content as well. What does that mean for you specifically? Because I'm fully like down that rabbit hole. I definitely believe that too, but I would love to hear your take on you design your life concept.
What it means to me.
Yeah.
So I think for me, from experience, I think we can be reactive our entire lives. We can just be reacting to whatever's happening to us from the minute we wake up in the morning, right? You pick up your
Yeah.
phone, you're scrolling your email, that has nothing to do with you. You're taking in that input, you're scrolling social media, you're taking in that input. Then you check your to-do list, possibly even an entire day of things that you don't really want to be doing, but you have to do. You can just spend your life until you die going down that list. And for me, life design is taking a beat amongst that chaos, that we're going to have that chaos in our lives, but just taking a beat to say, what do I want my life to look like? And then actually making conscious decisions somewhere within that schedule to make sure that you can get there.
Yeah. I talk about that a lot because I feel like we live unconsciously, like you said, react in this
Mm-hmm.
reactive state. And it's this unconscious programming, right? Of like, you're supposed to be doing this, supposed to be doing that, but then it just kind of takes over. And it's very being intentional, right? That's kind of what you're speaking to, I think. And then it's definitely something I definitely believe in. And I talk about a lot about how it is possible for us to get back in the driver's seat of our lives and decide where we want that car to go. But
Mhm.
most of us tend to kind of get stuck in this rut sometimes of just being taken along for the ride, basically.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you know how it is, you just kind of get to a destination literally when you're driving sometimes, you're like, I don't know how I got here.
Don't remember driving here.
Literally. And,
Yes.
that's great that we can have all of these daydreams and stuff, but at the same time, I feel like that is truly a metaphor for the way we live our lives. And especially in today's world where we're thrown a lot of crap over and over again. So it's really easy to just get stuck in that. So this designing your life is a good reminder.
It also, because I do talk to a lot of people that are like going through a really hard time. So say they're
Yes.
going through a divorce, they've lost money somehow, they have a family member that's super ill, they are ill, and they're like, yeah, that all sounds great and lovely, but that doesn't apply to me. And when I talk to people, I'm like, obviously right now you're not going to be accomplishing what you can
Yeah.
because you have limitations. But what can you do? Can you take 5 minutes today to like figure out a way to keep your sanity? Can you step outside and ground for 5 minutes? Can you just take a deep breath? Can you be grateful for the nurse that is helping you? Can you
Yep.
just the little things that we can focus on that we can control, I think are very helpful in those moments. And it's, life design, I think people think it has to be this transformation that has happened and now you're a completely different person, and it doesn't. The steps start very small because otherwise it actually can be very overwhelming thinking you
Yeah.
have to be transformed in this new person. That can be incredibly overwhelming.
That's such a great point, and I'm really glad you brought that up because it is absolutely true. It does, and I think also, and maybe it's part of, and not just creatives, but I think that a lot of us are very black and white thinkers, right? It has to be all or none. Like I got to do it perfect, or I'm not going to fucking do it at all. That whole situation. And so I feel like because we sort of have this, we're primed for that mindset. When people do hear this, design your life, it's like, well, that's nice for you, but, and you're right, it's small steps, right? Small steps lead to really big changes over time. And we can just break it down and do it in chunks and do what you can with what you can and what you have at the moment. Even if it is 5 minutes, even if it is just like sitting in the sun for like 5 minutes. And if that's
Yeah.
all you have, like what can you do with what you have and what can you control? Because most of it is completely outside of your control, but you can control yourself and your state and your breathing,
Mm-hmm.
and the intention there. So I do appreciate you bringing that up because I hear that a lot as well in my community. I initially found you on TikTok, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I reached out to
The
you.
talk. Yes.
I love me some TikTok. I had been on there since 2019, actually, and I
Oh,
was,
wow.
yeah, before the pandemic hit. I was, I work with a lot of high school seniors and teenagers in my job as a photographer, and so I saw them migrating there, and I was like, that's where I've got to be, and I actually really loved it. All the photographers that I coach are like, absolutely not. I am not doing TikTok. I'm not dancing. I'm not doing this. And I was like, no, 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 you don't understand. You can make it your own. And then 2020 hit, and then everybody started coming over, and I was like, I told you guys, like, literally,
I've been telling you for
listen to
years.
me.
I was on the cutting edge.
Right. But that's besides the point. Anyhow, what really struck me with your content, because again, you came up on my For You page. And what I loved about it was that, it's polished and professional because you know what you're doing, but it's not overly like slick and like super, it's still something that I can connect to. And I
Thank
found
you.
that really, yeah, I found that really interesting and different, right? It's another reason why you stand out, which is huge today. Like, how are you going to stand out? And it makes a lot of sense hearing you say, the whole music video thing, because that's it makes a lot more sense now. I'm like, oh yeah, because I was the same way. Like I had fantasies of, not necessarily being a dancer because that is not my skill. That and singing
Not
is
your
not my
thing?
skill either. But I wish that I could. You know what I mean? Like I wish that I could. And so I would definitely throw myself into those like dreamlike scenarios when I was younger. And I totally understand that. And you and I, we have very similar music tastes. So that's definitely, we'll get to music in a second because I have
I
a
can't
question
wait.
about that is going to be really specific. But my question for you in this respect is, how do you do that melding of the like, professional with connection? And this might be like more of a technical, question, which I think a lot of people would probably find value in, but what do you use to film your videos? What do you use to edit? Like, what's your preferred way of doing it? And what do you find works best for you and your audience?
Well, I can't say that I actually made a conscious decision about the level of polish to the videos, but I did have always two goals. Well, my number one goal always is to make sure that this video is worth your time. I have very high standards for my audience, and I don't want to waste anybody's time. So is it worth the time? And also I want to make the visuals interesting enough to keep your attention, but I want to make it relatable enough and grounded enough that it feels real. So technically I use basic things like when I use natural light as much as possible. I shoot in real spaces. But I am very drawn, if you've seen my videos, I'm very drawn to things that kind of pull the extraordinary out of the ordinary.
Yes.
So like I'm always inspired by different directors like Tim Burton in Edward Scissorhands when Edward goes to the town and it's this fantastical character in these normal situations. That really gets me excited. So I just find different ways, like shooting with the natural light in the real spaces. That's one way that I kind of can do that and bring those elements in. Also, I shoot everything on my iPhone.
I love that.
Which I came from a video production background. And that was a conscious decision. I was like, I am not going through the wrangling of the DSLR and the batteries and the memory cards and the lights and the lenses. And then if you want to do audio, you got to do a mic and a 4-track. Like it's too much gear. So I was like, okay, let's simplify. If I'm going to create this much content, I'll just do it on my iPhone. So I shoot everything on my iPhone, which has been great. We've done a few drone shots, but everything else that you see is iPhone. And then editing, I use Premiere.
Okay, cool.
That's my baby. That's probably where I'm the most comfortable. That's where I've done my 10,000 hours for sure. And that's really where the storytelling happens. So I get very excited when I'm heading into the edit for a video. That's where all
you love that part.
The magic happens. Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell that you have an editor's eye and heart. You know what I mean? Because that's really people, I don't know. I don't think that people really understand just the average Joe, let's say. I don't think they understand how important that is. I mean, and it also, you have to love it. Like as a photographer, I can see that from a different perspective because I'm definitely nobody's videographer, right? And I, as much as I love doing content and making videos and providing value, my joy is not in that editing process, but I love editing photos. Like honestly, that is where you put your finishing touches on it. You know what I mean? Like that's how you make it yours. Do you find that's kind of how you feel about that as well in video?
That's where it kind of comes to life. It's especially when you're shooting. Photography is a little different because you get the shot, but even photography, when you're editing it, the colors, you're able to actually bring the color to life. So the photo takes on an incredibly different story.
Totally.
In editing, I mean, most of the time when I'm shooting these videos, I'm not shooting in order. I'm just shooting a shot. And then, so now in editing, I can put it all together. My brain is a little bit nuts. And before I go into a shoot, I do have all the shots in my head. I do a shot list, amazing. But I also picture it all in my head. So when I'm doing it, I'm picturing the edit before I've even started editing to make sure that I'm getting everything that I need. I'll be in the middle of a shot and I'll be like, oh, whoops, I forgot to write down that I need a pickup there because I'm going to need something to go from this shot to this. You're a filmmaker.
You're thinking like a filmmaker.
Yes.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. And it's a blast. I mean, it's a blast. It's a lot to think about.
It is. But when you have the kind of brain that I think, automatically is sort of like wired for that or primed for, obviously, if you're doing it because you love it, that, you know what I mean? At least there's something like that because for me, like personally, and I'm married to an actor, writer, director, filmmaker. So I understand, like I hear him talking a lot about that as well. That's not how my brain works at all. Right. But I definitely understand that in terms of photography, because when I'm shooting, I can see it. Like I can see that final image when I've gotten that shot, I'm like, oh my God. Like I know when it happens and I know how I'm going to edit it. I'm going to crop it. And I know the feeling that's going to be like received from that
Mhm.
image. I see it all. So I think it is similar in that process when you have that end in mind, right? And you're
Yeah.
something that makes such a big difference.
Can I
So
ask you a
yeah,
question?
absolutely.
Because this is something that I am working on. So this is more of just a discussion point. But I've noticed with shoots, because I'm someone who likes to like plan everything out. Bit I work on perfectionism, just a bit. But I've noticed every shoot, if I something magical always happens that I did not
Yes.
plan. And so now in my planning, I'm like, okay, but I'm going to leave room. I'm going
Yes.
to leave a little extra time on the shoot day to just see what happens. Do you do that at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know if you know a lot about the Enneagram, but I'm an Enneagram 7, wing 8. And so I think that has, because otherwise, which is so weird because everywhere else, I'm a Virgo, I'm an INTJ, like I am like primed for perfection, right? Like that is
Mhm.
like Gen Xer, basically like feral childhood, but like had to be perfect.
Born and bred for perfection.
Yes. And
Yes.
trauma. And so, but this part of me, you're right. I think that too many times I see creatives, and I love that you brought this up and that you do this because I work with a lot of creatives. I coach a lot of creatives, and I think that's what gets us into trouble is that we tend to start, comparing ourselves to all the other ones, whether it's photographers or, creators or whatever field we're in, we start like get inundated with all this input and oversaturation of content. You start thinking like, oh, well, maybe I should be doing that. I should be doing that. And you get kind of lost in all of this other stuff and forget your own magic that you
Hmm.
already have. And so it's something that I am actually really intentional about. When I go into a shoot, I'm always leaving room for what if. Like I'm asking myself that question a lot. Like I'm really big and I'm trained in NLP, and this is kind of an NLP thing, but I always like to ask myself those questions. Like, I wonder what would happen if I did this. Like I wonder what kind of magic is going to show up today. Like literally just asking myself that every
Mm.
morning. And then before I go into a shoot, like, I wonder what's going to show up today. I wonder you know what I mean? Like just asking ourselves these questions actually opens up a whole different like creative space for us, and it gets
Yeah.
us out of this rigidity that we
Mhm.
feel like we have to, like, as perfectionists, like be in. And so if you guys are listening to this, like, and if you struggle with that, like that is a really, really great point to take from this conversation, is that there's so much amazing stuff that happens, but you have to allow it to
Yes.
right. And so
Yes.
you like just kind of like, for me, I just kind of like let it be and I ask myself questions. Do you have like, is that kind of how you approach it as well? Or do you find yourself daydreaming about things that could happen too? Like, because I do that sometimes too.
I'm daydreaming all the time. All the time. I have caught myself on video when if I'm in the middle of thinking about something, I just get quiet and I have no expression on my face and it looks like someone's just turned me off. And I've
Yes.
caught
Yes.
it on video before and I'm like, I look like I'm clinically nuts because I'll just
Yeah.
be like dead face.
Downloading.
Meanwhile, my brain is doing cartwheels through the sky like it's on fire. So yes, I am daydreaming all the time. For me, though, building in the magic to happen is I still, the perfectionist, I still like to build the structure, but then I just allow a little more space for
Mm,
something to happen. So either that might manifest in time, that might manifest in, hey, we're going to a cool location. I don't know exactly what the shot's going to look like. Let's get there and test some stuff out. That day might be weird. The light might be weird,
yeah.
or a beautiful cloud could appear and we could do something like that. I've had a flock of crows suddenly come by and I'm like trying to get that. There's just magic that happens that you'll miss if you're just like got to follow the shot list and that's not on there, like it's really important,
Absolutely.
but it's something I learned literally probably in the past 3 months. I was not,
Yeah.
I was rigid before that and I was missing things.
That's a really good point. You kind of have to get out there and sometimes just throw yourself into the fire to do it and see what shows up.
Hmm.
But also, you are also aware enough to notice it. That's the thing,
Yes.
like you have to kind of notice when that stuff is happening. Which I believe, I talk a lot about, like in business and things like that. We need grit, obviously, but we need
Mm. I
optimism.
love that word.
Grit.
That is one of my favorite things. I'm
Yes.
so glad you said that.
Yes. Grit and optimism. And there's actually a lot of research on this that's been done as well. Like, and that's really kind of the basis of my show, right? Like tried and true strategies and things that we know work, and then a dash of woo, a dash of magic, a dash of optimism, whatever you want to call it. Like, I really do believe, I don't know, maybe it's my Libra rising, that I feel like we have to have both, a balance of both. And we dance with it for sure. I think like there's definitely times where you got to be more gritty. There's definitely a lot of times where you got to be a little bit more open to the magic. But I believe that we definitely need a healthy dose of both to kind of make our dreams come true, if we want to be cheesy about it. But like that's really what it is, right? Like if you've got this desire and you're creative, and you got the desire to make money from it, that's a business as opposed to a hobby. So I wanted to kind of dive into that for a second and see how, because you probably, when you started this, like you said, you were doing this for you, this rediscovery, like it was very much an authentic journey. But as you've grown, I can imagine, and I don't know the answer to this, and I could be completely wrong, but I can imagine that now you've amassed such a huge following on TikTok, especially. This is now going into a different sort of lane for you, right? So as far as like business, how have you navigated that while keeping the joy, keeping the creativity, while also like, is that something you want it to be even? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, this has been fascinating because no one is more surprised about the rise on TikTok than myself. I still don't really know what's happening. And also it happened very quickly. So I started posting on TikTok Halloween of 22. So it's been a little over a year and a half-ish. Math isn't my strong suit, but
yeah, me neither.
let's just guess. Year and a half. And I think I got very lucky. I got lucky in the fact that my brain doesn't work in the way that I'm like, oh, well, now I have this amount of following, so now I'm important. I feel like I have a little bit of imposter syndrome. And part of me is like, what? This was a giant mistake. You guys have gone to the wrong account. I'm so sorry. We'll correct it soon. But part of it is that I don't know. My relationship with it has changed over the past year because it happened very quickly. So then I had to be like, okay, well, maybe this means I have to post every day. So then it just started making me figure out, whoa. Okay. So I am much less concerned with what the app wants from me than how this actually is going to fit into my life. That way I can make it sustainable and stick with my purpose of bringing people value. I'm not going to just start posting just to post, which is a strategy that works, and businesses need it because they need to grow, all that stuff. I'm doing the absolute wrong rules on everything here when it comes to posting, but it works for me. Yeah. So that's how I've dealt with it. And also I'm just very grateful, and I'm still in awe of the fact that there's a video I posted. It was my 4th video I post on TikTok, and it told my story and it went viral. And I was weeping because I was like, for me to press post on that video took so much courage, and I almost didn't do it about 5,000 times. Yeah. And then I did. And then for the reaction to happen it was a little validating, I'll admit. But also I was just in awe that I was not alone. I was so not alone that this many people cared about it. They started following me. So I think I'm just so grateful that this happened to me. I lost my purpose. I did the work to try to figure it all out. And now I'm doing the thing that I think I should be doing, but I'm still not totally clear on the path. I'm just doors are opening and I'm going through them. But that it's happening and things are moving. And so I'm just very grateful for this opportunity, and I'm also just kind of seeing where it goes. And also, the podcast, when you asked me to be on, I was like, am I interesting enough to be on a podcast? Also, can I edit this myself? Because I'm very...
Because I'm a control freak. I totally get that.
Yeah. You guys listening, this is only like my 2nd podcast, and I almost had a panic attack at the beginning of this thing. So I'm learning, and sometimes you have to do the things you're scared of. That's one of the reasons I said yes, is I was like, I'm terrified of this. Let's just do it. I think it'll be good for growth. And thank you for patience with me.
Oh my gosh, of course. Well, it's one of the things that I talk about a lot too. And I mean, I didn't make it up. I think the first time I heard it was Tony Robbins, because I've been like a self-development, like, you know, going down that rabbit hole for 20 years. And one thing he talks about a lot, and people have regurgitated this many different times, but like if something comes up and you feel like you can't, you must. It's
Mm,
like literally. And so I hear his voice in my head all the time. Like when there's something that comes up, because for me, like podcasting, Zooms, all of that comes super easy to me.
mm.
Get me on a stage in front of physical people, I want to vomit. Like literally. And
We're the
people are like
opposite.
shocked by that. They're
Yeah.
like, what are you talking about? Like, you talk all the time, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, I want to curl into a ball and go to sleep, like, literally never, ever, ever show my face in public again. And it keeps coming up. It's like, if you can't, you must. If you can't, you must. And I was like, I hate you, Tony, but it's so true, right? Because, like,
Yes.
the only way through is through, right? The only way to get over this is to go through it. And I mean, I coach people on this daily, like, right? Like the whole imposter stuff, everything. But it's really interesting too. I wanted to just quickly make a little note about the imposter syndrome, because I just saw a reel today of America Ferrera talking about that. And she was like, you know, because imposter syndrome is rooted in, I don't know if you've ever looked into like the origins of that, but I did a podcast on this a long time ago. And it was about, I was shocked to know exactly where it came from, but anyone who is basically minorities and even women, like people of color who have been suppressed for years, right?
Mhm.
And she was talking about how, well, it's not necessarily, she's like, yeah, I definitely feel like an imposter. She goes, but I didn't do this to myself. Like
Mm.
I literally like never, it's society and the way that we were raised that taught us that we couldn't do this, or, you know, so it's almost like this, it's a natural sort of feeling to have, right? Like, well, I've never been here before, so why would I feel like I can do this? Because this is so new. And I love that perspective a little bit that she brought to it, because
Yeah.
it's so true. It's like, when you've never done something before, it's gonna feel scary no matter what. And then if
Mhm.
it's a trigger, like we were just talking about, like, oh my God, like this is bringing up anxiety. For me, you know, running from it gives it a lot more power. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so the harder thing to do is to just face it. But in actuality, it's kind of the easiest thing to do as well, because it takes its
Yeah.
power away and you become empowered again. So
Yeah.
I'm
And
glad you
that's
brought that up. Yeah.
it's you just said so many important things there. And especially as a woman, the America Ferrera, that's brilliant. I haven't heard that before. And that was just resonating with me as you were saying it. I think as women as well, it's
Mhm.
even stronger, because this is something I've been fighting my entire career, because I was an editor that was female. I was in video production, I'm
Rare.
female. And most of the time I would talk to people and they'd be like, can I please speak to your editor, or things like that. And I'm like, you're talking to her. Let's
That
get
is
into
me.
it. it's it's just the way it is. And I think there's still, we carry so much of that, because it's, even though I've been fighting it for so long, it's still, it just depends on what different avenue you're going into. We do carry that. That was a really fascinating
Mhm.
point.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's something to definitely think about. And it was just a short clip. I'd like to try and find the longer clip of what she was talking about, because she probably laid a lot more truth nuggets in there. But it's something I see a lot of. And, you know, kind of going back to this discussion of just kind of like showing up, like you pressing the button on that, you know, that video was incredibly difficult to do. I hear that a lot, and I've definitely been there as
Mhm.
well. But I hear a lot from creatives, from photographers, from, you know, they're like, well, who cares? Who cares about my story? Nobody cares about what I had for breakfast. Nobody cares what I blah 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 blah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm sorry, but that's just not true, right? And the only way to really understand that and to know it is to just kind of put yourself out there, and to show up authentically.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason why people do connect is because of that, right? And we throw that word around a lot, that authenticity, like, right? I mean, I
Hmm.
get kind of like sick of that word, but there's a reason
Hmm.
why, you know, that video of yours. And I don't think that that's the one I initially saw, but I went to it after I, you know, was like, oh my gosh, like this is so fun. Your content is so fun. And
Thank you.
that's really what was so refreshing about it. And that brings me back to my optimism statement. Like, we don't have enough of that. We don't have enough of that. And my husband, this is something he talks about a lot too, because the movies that he makes and wants to make, they're not like doom and gloom, true crime. They are like happy movies. They make people feel good, like 80s films did. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
And I feel like I hope that we might be on the verge of a resurgence of that, like just in our media in general. But I think that I just want to make that point to you guys to, when you go check out Liz's content, like you're going to see what I'm talking about. It's happy. It makes you feel good. And I have a question about the music because I know this has to be something top of mind for you now that TikTok has like we had this music rights situation with Universal Group. So a
Yeah.
lot of the music went away. And that's like your music your videos are very music based. Like and maybe you even come up with an idea when you hear a song. I don't even know. What is going on with that for you, and how are you going to navigate that?
I mean, I'm rolling up my sleeves, ladies and gentlemen. Let's dive into my most favorite topic. That is such a good question. And also, you are such a smart creative that you picked up on that. Like you're just, I just love speaking to other creatives. Thank you for asking this question. Yes, music is my thing. I love music. And when I come up, most of the time I am listening to music and then an idea comes up with a song. Sometimes I have an idea and the music comes up, but either way, the music and the idea are the top of my process. And then I kind of move on from there. So yes, this UMG TikTok feud, not great. Half my videos right now are muted, which if you want to see the ones that are muted, they're over on Instagram as well.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm so hoping they come to a resolution here and they're able to make up. But it's out of our control. It's totally out of our control. That's the risk we take on posting on these apps is we don't have control of the content completely. So until then, I'm just going to have to be selective about my music and be a little more flexible, which makes me not as excited, but I have hope because Taylor Swift is coming out with an album in April and she's on Universal. I cannot imagine if anyone can fix this, it's going to be Taylor Swift.
Mother.
Yes. Mother will heal this wound and get us our music back.
Please, gods of Taylor Swift. Literally, like, I don't even know. You're right. It's we can't control it. It's definitely something that we can't do. But as a creative, I can also sort of infer that, it's probably made your brain like kind of turn in a different way. Like, okay, because I've been thinking about that. Like, how can you get around that? Like, yes, us speaking on camera is important and you've got voiceovers. I mean, you know what I mean? Like things like that. So maybe it'll be something that'll, spark something even more amazing. If we want to be optimistic, but yeah.
I like that thing. My brain is so crazy that at one point I was like, well, now I'm going to have to learn how to score my own things. And I was like, Liz, you don't have time. You don't have time to now become a composer. Okay, let's rein it in a little bit there, sister.
I love that.
That's the only choice.
Well, I can probably do it. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. That's the thing with creatives, and especially those of us like, and I think I was a grown ass adult before I realized that not everybody kind of thought this way, because like I said, I'm married to somebody who's also a creative, but his creative is different than my brain. Like his brain never stops. Like never stops. Like sometimes he can't sleep. Like there's some days where he will just not sleep because he just can't shut the brain off. I don't have that type of neurodiversity. So I'm really blessed in that. But in general, I was always the kind of person who like, oh, I want to learn how to do something. I'll just teach myself. Like, I'll just figure it out, And I really was an adult before I realized, oh, not everybody does that. But I imagine you probably are, which is why you had that idea.
100%. I am, yeah, the delusional to the max. I
Yeah,
think, yeah, and I don't know who to thank for this gift. I don't know if it's my parents for just instilling that confidence
probably.
in me. Also work, like I was a PA for so many, a production assistant
Yeah.
for so many years on sets, and literally they'll be like, "Well, we need the moon in an hour," and I'll be like, "Okay, you can ask questions, you just have to figure it out on your own." And I think
Yeah.
that training too got me like, well, I'll just do it myself. I can just do it to my detriment. There's times where you need to ask for help. And I'm learning that because you can also burn yourself out, which I did.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a balance. And your
Yeah.
husband and I have the same brain.
Are
He's
you like that too? Yeah.
yes, but to my health. I mean, to the detriment of my health. So I've had to,
Hmm.
it is so hard for us creatives listening. You can't tell a creative brain, hey, it's 9 to 5, and then you just turn off. It's our brains don't work that
Yeah.
way. You get ideas at weird times of day. Some days I'll block out and I'll be like, okay, today's a writing day. And then I sit down to write, and my brain's like, nope, we got nothing. You just have to be a little bit flexible, but at the same time, there are like time blocking. There are different strategies you can set up so that way you're supporting your
Yes.
brain, but you're not burning yourself out. You put in time to rest. I had no idea how important rest was.
Oh,
We
yeah.
need to build in rest as much as we build in work. I mean, it's especially for protecting your brain as a muscle and your creativity as a muscle. It is, I've learned that the hard way. Everything I talk about, I learned the hard way, which is the only
Same.
reason why I'm speaking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fascinating. It's so funny how we work differently. Like your creative brain is completely different than your husband's. My creative
Yeah.
brain is completely different than my husband's.
Is he
It's
a creative as well, your husband? Like, how does that work for you guys? This
he
is always
is.
interesting to me.
He has his own production company.
Okay.
He works mainly in sports and music. Life in a Van, shout out to Life in a Van Productions.
Nice.
He is so disciplined, it's frustrating. He is so disciplined with his work-life balance. Like he can just turn it off. He's like, that's enough for today. I'm tired. I'm going to take the time to rest. It's inspiring to me because he goes to sleep at the right time. He's so consistent. Meanwhile, my brain's like, doo let's go. If I let my brain go, I'd be up till 4 a.m. every day doing something.
Yeah.
It's just like a Tasmanian devil up there. But he helps his watching him. He's kind of an inspiration for me, be so disciplined and still be successful. And meanwhile, I'm over here staying up till 4 a.m. and feeling miserable. Like that was a good
Hmm.
parameter for me to figure out like there's another way to do this and still get the things done and also take care of yourself. I
Yeah.
mean, what a concept.
What a concept. I know. You know what? It's so interesting to hear that because your husband and I have a lot in common. But I kind of came to that because I burned myself. You know what I mean? Like I
Wow.
definitely, I am blessed and I am so grateful for this. Like I am blessed with the ability to sleep like that. I didn't realize how, like, I took it for granted
Mm,
basically. You know what I mean? And like being married to Andrew and seeing how he struck, because literally, like he will just be like, nope, tonight's not the night that I'm going to get any rest. And
wow.
there are like certain days where he just, and you name it, by the way, and he's tried it. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
literally, like and sometimes it works and he'll go like 2 weeks and he's like, this is glorious. And then it'll stop. And so
interesting.
I am asleep pretty much as I lay my head down to the pillow. He's like, what happens? I'm like, I just stop thinking and go to sleep. And he's like, you're an alien. Like, how do you get your brain to stop? I'm like, I just tell it.
This is really fascinating because I'm you in this respect. I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
turn it off.
That's good. That's
And my
good.
husband
Yeah.
can't, but yet he's the one that is like making sure he
More
gets to
disciplined.
bed.
Well, maybe
It's
that's why.
fascinating.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he definitely, Andrew has more like sleep rituals and they call it like a sleep diet, right? Like there's certain supplements that he has to take like 3 hours before he wants to
Oh.
go to sleep. There's certain things that you shouldn't do before you go to, like me, I'm like, whatever. I could have I could have a cup of coffee and I will be like asleep in an hour. You know what I mean? My body, I think it is just like, and honestly, this could have to do with a lot of different things, but I've gotten into human design a lot in the last couple of years. And I've really seen that because I'm a generator and I'm like, oh, I just burn all that energy all day long. And like, by the time I go to bed, I'm like, I'm done. I got to replenish.
Mhm.
And so I'm really grateful for that. But years and years of having kids. So I had 3 kids under the age of 2, which was
A lot.
awful. Yeah. Like
That was a
literally.
lot. That
We
was
did
too
not
much.
plan. Yeah, we didn't plan that at all. And it was just like the universe was like, oh, here's a bunch of kids. And okay, we're doing that. And then it was just years and years of like not sleeping enough because of that. Like that's kind of where my sleep issues came from. Like when I did sleep, I slept, but I wasn't sleeping enough. And what you had said before about like how important sleep is, when I started prioritizing like 7 to 8 hours, that's my window. I know that, because I lived on like 5.5, 6 hours of sleep. I lived on that for years, just like,
Yeah.
and it really took a toll on my body, my hormones, my cortisol, all kinds of stuff. And it wasn't until my kids left the house and went to college that I was like, oh, wow, this is kind of amazing. Like 7 to 8 hours of sleep, I'm a different person. So I think that if you can like find your sweet spot as early on as possible, and I know it's hard, like if you're out there raising kids and you're listening to this, I totally feel you. But maybe that does look like shutting down, a lot earlier. Cause for me, I used to like rebel against that bedtime, right? I'd put my kids to bed and I'd be like, this is my time.
Yeah.
And, this is my time to be creative and to build my business and edit photos or whatever it is. And it's like, oh, okay, now it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I got to get these kids to school at 6. That's going to suck. So really being intentional, I think about like what works for you and then allowing yourself some freedom in that maybe as well. But that is interesting that your husband, you guys have that sort of like different dynamic. And I'm glad that you're a sleeper
So
as well, because it matters.
it so matters. And like the difference between 5 hours to 8 hours of sleep is so different. The difference between 6 hours to 7 hours sleep is so different. It's wild how our brain works. And he though is a person that because he doesn't always sleep great, he'll take naps during the day and I'll actually get mad at him because I'll be like,
I can't.
We have so much to do today. This is not, and he's like, I have to take a nap. Like that's it. And I respect it. But at the same time, I'm like, well, if you just keep going through the day, then you'll go to sleep at night.
Exactly.
Like, that's not the way I work.
These are conversations I've had with my husband.
Oh, good. I'm
glad. Like, why are you napping? He's like, because I physically need to actually sleep.
Yeah. And that's totally fine. But people like you and I who are not nappers are like, yeah, let's keep it going, buddy. Come on. That's bedtime only.
That's so funny. Does he help you with your content sometimes? Like, how does that look for you guys? 'Cause sometimes I drag my husband into my work and vice versa.
Yes, he helps me sometimes. Most of the time it's me. Occasionally, if you see me on camera and the camera's moving, then I've either had to rope him in or a friend in, or my niece lives in the area. I started roping her in. Anyone is someone on the street. I mean, I've just started.
Yeah.
It just depends, but he's super helpful. He's also the first person I show everything to. He's an incredible support, and he supported me through this whole thing. When one day I was like, I'm going to try this. And he's like, okay, let's,
that's awesome.
Let's do it. Yeah. He's a wonderful man. I'm very lucky.
That's very cool. I'm curious to know, like, out of all of this that's happening, and again, it's still happening for, you're still sort of trying to like acclimate to it and kind of, figure out where you want all this to go. What has been like an unexpected either challenge or good stuff or both, that you faced? And like, if it was a challenge, how'd you overcome it?
Something that's not unexpected that I'm always facing is, perfectionism in my relationship with it. Which this has actually been preach. We'll start a club.
Seriously.
It just rears its ugly head sometimes, but this has actually been very helpful for it because there's times where I'm like, we're not going to reshoot that, Liz. This is what you got. You only have a day to shoot this, and then we got to just move forward. So that's something I'm constantly battling. The thing that was unexpected is the idea that the content never stops. There is no end in sight to how much content to create. And I spoke earlier on this, that was when I really had to look at my relationship with the apps and also balance that with my life and be like, what do I want this to look like? This is way more about what I want it to look like, the quality I want to produce. And if that happens to grow, that would be wonderful. I can't just live my life just trying to follow the rules because I'm going to lose all the life design that I just spent 2 years working on, So that's been the probably the most unexpected challenge and something that I'm still grappling with because I actually would love to ask you the question of how you deal with content because you are so good. You are always have content out and it's
I have a lot of
quality
content.
content. You do. I'm like, does she have a team of 30 people? How is she doing all this? You're really incredible at it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Honestly, it is a lot of repetition. I mean, it wasn't like that when I started in 2019 on TikTok. And honestly, before that, I wasn't producing as much because that's not the world we lived in. Like, you know what I mean? Like back then, it was Instagram mainly. And, I wasn't thinking about, oh, I have to, create like 3 to 5 videos a day. That's TikTok. And so, and it's changed. And it's changed, you know what I mean? As you know, that algorithm is just like constantly in evolution. And
Mm-hmm.
so, a PhD to just figure that out. But what I have found is that, first of all, I know the kind of content that my audience really responds to and like what's going to be the most helpful for them. And a lot of it is me talking to camera and answering questions and doing that sort of content. And that's not really hard necessarily for me to do
Mm-hmm.
because I do it all day, every day in coaching. Like I'm doing it all the time. So it's that 10,000 hours thing I
Yeah.
think about, you know what I mean? Like that's definitely coming into play there. If I were creating something more in line with what you're doing, that would be a whole different story. Like that's a whole different type of content in my mind anyway, because first of all, I'm not great at that. I wish I could be, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And, there's definitely pieces of it where I'm like, oh, that would be fun to do, but it's quick. It's like 8 seconds and it's like something that just kind of pops into my brain. And I just kind of like, I'm inspired by maybe a piece of music and I just want to kind of push it out. But I think really the answer to that is that I I have stumbled into it. Like I didn't intentionally do this, but I'm good at it. I didn't know that I'd
Mm-hmm.
be good at that. Right? It's like a lot of
Yeah.
times we don't know we're good at something until we do it. And I think this is definitely one of those things where I'm like, oh, I like somebody was asking me that at lunch the other day. She was like, who do you have right now helping you? And I was like, nobody. Because I have in the past had people in and out, but like they can't go as fast as me.
Mm.
And I'm going to find somebody. I'm a big believer in asking for help and outsourcing and having people, but I need somebody who's going to be like a me. And
Right.
that's
That's what
hard.
I run into too. Cause I'm getting to the point where I'm going to need to start asking for help, but I'm like, but how do I
Yes.
clone
Yes.
myself?
Yes. Yes. It is really interesting. And so I know that that person is out there. I do. And I have people who help me with other things, right?
Mhm.
But not necessarily with like the production of the content. For me, like that's really like where I shine right now. But over time, that's definitely it's on my radar for sure. Um,
Yeah. Well,
and
it's inspiring
well,
that you're
thanks.
able to do that. And it's just so authentic because you see a lot of people creating a lot of content, but
Yeah.
it's not always great
Yeah,
content.
no, I agree with that.
So,
And I'm in the same way. It's like I'm not going to just put something crappy out just to put something out. Like that's not ever what I want. And a lot of my videos, like some of them are just like some of them do fine, some of them do really well, and that's data. Like so I tell that to creatives all the time, like notice
Mhm.
what is resonating and then just do it again, right? Like and
Right.
maybe put a different spin on it. Maybe, talk about a different piece of it and see how that resonates because really what it's about is like how am I connecting with
Mhm.
that audience? And
That's the whole
yeah,
thing. I mean, that's the whole I feel like if you're not coming from that place, then what are you
yeah,
doing here? The whole thing is about the audience. I mean, it's all about what your connection and the value that you're bringing and that's the best for me. That's the best way to approach this whole thing because
hmm
otherwise it's quite overwhelming. Otherwise, you're also trying to follow the trends, which are never
yeah,
ending.
never
And
ending.
I
Yeah,
have not done, I don't think I've done a trend yet. This is what I'm
yeah.
talking about when I'm breaking the rules. Like I
And I
was just
love
like,
that. I love that you have created like 60,000 plus followers on TikTok without doing trends and you don't go live and you know what I mean? Like you're
yeah.
doing things in a very different way, which is fascinating to me because it's like Seth Godin always talks about, like be the purple cow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I love me some nonconformity. Okay. Let me just tell you, we were talking about why that is part of my why statement is all about like unconventionality and
Mm-hmm.
differently. So
But even I'm surprised by, I had a video that went very viral last year. It was the witch video
oh
over
yeah.
this past Halloween. That was a 2.5 minute video that ended up getting 1.6 million views. I ended up getting 32,000 followers from
Wow.
that one video. And it was a 2.5 minute video on TikTok. There
Yeah.
are parts of things like I also happened to post that video right as TikTok, unbeknownst to all of us, was going to start pushing longer content.
Yep.
So there is an element of luck for sure with this stuff that comes into play. But I don't know about you, but sometimes when things go viral, I'm like, wow, I thought this video was going to go, but this is the one. Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
meant something to me, and I was super proud of it. But I never
It
thought
resonated. It
Mhm.
resonated. You got to, that a video can't go viral like that if it doesn't resonate. And if people don't watch it the whole time, that's the
Yeah.
thing. And like you said, 2.5 minutes, like that's asking a lot of a TikTok
Yes.
generation, but that is storytelling. And
Mhm.
that's really a huge, props to you, because that is hard to do. If somebody's tuning in for that long and over again, because I watched that video like probably 3 or 4 times. Like
Oh, they
I was just like, this just makes me so happy. And, like, and I love the song and I love all the like, things that it's just like the storytelling part of it is
Thank you.
really, really huge. And so if you're out there trying to create content and nothing's really hitting, like, from this conversation, hopefully you've gotten, stay true to yourself. It has to come from you, and it has like that the nature of it has to be pure in that sense. I think, like it can't just be because you want to like become, TikTok famous or anything like that. Like I'm sure that happens, but the longevity, I think, is where what comes in is when it's authentic and when you have connection. You're building a community of
Mhm.
people who are like-minded. Like really, like if you've got
Yeah.
that many people following you from one video, that means they want to see more of that, but also that means that it's your people. And I think
These
there's
are
something so
yeah.
magical there,
And as I'm getting to know them too, I mean, these are like incredibly brilliant, smart
Yes.
people living incredible lives. And it's just so cool to resonate, to have the same themes going on in your life that are going on in someone
Yes.
else's life, and for you guys to connect. That's the beauty of social media, I think.
And you had
Is
Nancy
that
Myers comment, I think, on one of your videos,
she
right?
reposted a
She
video. I have
reposted
still
it.
not recovered. I am not okay
That
about
is
this.
insane. I mean, I was going to ask, I needed to ask, I was like, how did you deal with that?
I did not. I did not. First of all, I was like, I shut down because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My husband has a funny imitation of me because we were watching every time I post it and I put the phone away for like 3 hours. Sometimes I don't even check it till the next morning because I just don't want to be.
That's awesome. So you don't stay on there for 20 minutes and make sure you go through, like they say, you're supposed, again, that's
No.
another rule that you're breaking that I love.
Instagram, occasionally I will stay on for like 10 minutes, but it's hard for me. Like it just
Hard, yeah.
feels very salesy. I don't know if that's the right word.
Performative and ego. Yeah,
And
I
not
totally get all that. Yeah.
authentic. Like I'm just commenting that way I get more thing. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
It's so
Uh-huh.
I do try to dismiss. Also, it is hard when you start getting a lot of positive feedback. We are human beings. It can get addicting. And it is, and I
Yeah,
want to make
dopamine.
sure that I'm not searching for that, because then I think it's going to cloud all of
Mhm.
this. So I try to make, that's another boundary that I try to make. But that day I posted, did my thing. My husband and I are watching TV. We like made dinner, went for a walk, did all this stuff. And then I picked up my phone to check it. And he said, I just started going, what? And he was like, you couldn't make a word, because I was getting these alerts on Instagram, which I don't get like huge things from Instagram. I was getting a million alerts. And then finally he was like, I think Nancy Myers just reposted your thing because people are DMing me. And I was like, what? And then called all my friends. It was,
Oh,
I still can't believe it.
that
And
is
she
so
wrote
cool.
me the sweetest note after too. Like we had a little interaction that I didn't post,
Stop
but
it.
she's a real gem.
Okay.
Brilliant gem.
That is incredible. I
Yeah.
love that so much. I love that for you. Okay. Before we wrap up, because I could keep you here all day talking about
I
this.
know. I could stay with you all day. This is so
We got a
fun.
lot to talk about.
I
But I
know.
do always like to ask my guests, because of the show and the theme of it, um, how does woo or magic kind of show up in your daily life? Like whether it's a spiritual practice or rituals you do, belief systems, whatever it is, astrology, like what level of woo are you?
Level of woo I have in my life.
Yeah.
I have anxiety, suffer with anxiety. I have for many
Same.
years. As I said at the beginning of this podcast, when I had to restart because I started having a moment. I have a lot of woo in my toolbox along with other things. Some things that have recently been helping me the most. One, I didn't want to believe that this works as much as it works, but now there's too much evidence is manifesting. I'm like, it just works. It just happens. I'm not saying I sit here and I say I want $1 million and it shows up on my doorstep, but there has been so many things that have happened that I have thought about, and then suddenly it's happening, maybe not in the way that I thought it was going to happen, but it's happening. So manifestation, I'm very cautious about what I'm putting out in the universe, what I'm asking for, and how specific I get when I am asking for something. And also, what am I giving back to it? I believe in that give and take with the universe, which is so woo. And then the second thing is meditation.
Yeah.
I meditate and I journal every morning. And that for me, the meditation just helps. Mornings are stressful. Your cortisol levels up. Your brain right away when you wake up tends to be stressed. So I don't touch my phone. I meditate and then I journal. And the meditating is calming my mind. The journaling is getting out whatever nonsense I'm ruminating on and just getting it out of my brain. So those have been the two woo things that I'm into at the moment.
I love it. I love that. Yeah, us anxious girlies, meditation, man, meditation. And honestly, that goes along with the manifestation too, because you can get so much closer to the person you want to become by meditating, because you are literally like, I don't know, are you a fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza? Have you read his books at all?
I'm just about to start some meditation stuff with him because so many people have recommended it, but I have not started yet.
That will change your life. Because that's what he talks about. And it's literally about becoming this energetic version of yourself. And the fastest way to do it is to meditate through it. And so I know like a lot of people are like, well, my brain is too active. No, you don't have to do anything. Like that's the thing, and I'm certified in hypnosis and I love hypnosis as well. So I use both. Because in hypnosis, you can speak directly to your unconscious, which I think is like a fast track.
Game changer.
Yeah, it really is. And sometimes I'll just fall asleep listening to hypnosis tracks and I'll wake up and I'm like, it's really cool. It's really, really cool. I'll have like students say like, I don't know why, but all of a sudden, like everything is shifted. I'm like, how often are you listening to the hypnosis tracks? Every night. And I'm like, yeah, that's why. So there's a lot of power. And I just think that it's amazing. That's why I love to ask this question, to see what everybody's processes are, because yes, you're right. Your mornings, it's very easy to just like get up and fall right down, the anxiety highway. That's what I call it. And to be reactive. It sets you up to be reactive. But if you take control of it, you're the one who's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to create first, or I'm going to, before I consume, that kind of thing. Right. Be a little bit more intentional and in control of your state from the jump. I really think it's a much better way to set up your day.
And I only learned that through doing it the other way first. And it didn't work. And it's just, sometimes I think these things are so simple that we're like, it's too simple. It can't possibly work. It's too simple, but it does. So
no, 100%. I tell people all the time, it's like, it's a very, very simple thing. It doesn't mean it's easy. It is simple. Right. Good point. That's the thing. Cause we get up here and the overthinking takes control, and it's like, you create a lot of different excuses and things like that, but it can be easy. So, just let it be easy.
Yeah. Put so much pressure on yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's me.
Thank you so much for being here. Okay. Tell everybody where do you prefer people connect with you? All of that, cause I know, obviously on TikTok and things like that, but is there a specific way that you want people to connect with you or anything like that?
Well, yeah, you can follow me on TikTok at Lizz Rantze. You can follow me on Instagram at Lizz Rantze. On Instagram, I am probably more reachable, DM wise. I'm always in my DMs and I'm always talking to people. So if you'd like to get a hold of me, that's the best way. But I would love to chat with you. I mean, I'm so
Awesome.
excited to talk to your audience, and this is very cool what you're creating here. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. This has been awesome. How amazing is she? Like, just so real. And I mean, like, even with that little moment in the beginning where she wanted, she needed to stop. When we were done, she's like, keep that in. Like, just keep that in. It's like totally my thing. Like, I think it's important for people to see, like, we're all just human. We all have stuff going on, right? Social media is fake. And I loved that because it's a really great beat and a reminder that, yeah, sometimes we just need a second. And yeah, like I've been in that position. As I mentioned on the show a few times, I have a lot of anxiety. And there has been a lot of times where I've had to do that. I've had to just say, "Oh, can we just take a second? I need to breathe." I forgot to breathe. And I've also done it where I didn't speak up and take a minute and I just pushed it down and tried to like pretend that I was okay. And it's really a lot harder to do that. It's so much easier to just stop and say, "Hey, you know what? I need a second. So sorry, but let me just regroup for a minute." And that's usually all it takes. And so I think that's a really good metaphor just for all of us, right? Like if you need a minute, say something. Okay. Be your own biggest advocate because a lot of times we feel like we can't say something because it's going to be weird or we don't want to be perceived a certain way. But in actuality, most people are dealing with this kind of stuff and most people are going to be understanding of what you're going through. So speak up for yourself. Okay. You can't get what you want if you don't ask for it. Another takeaway that I think is really valuable from this episode is her process and sort of the way that she looks at it. And also, what she brought up about leaving room for the unexpected and the magical. I love that because I didn't even realize I kind of was doing that until probably years into my business. And it is a very cool thing that we can be very intentional about because when we do intentionally leave the space open and like the what if, right? The question, when we get curious, the universe answers. And so something really fun always shows up. And that's where most of like the magic happens in my sessions is, stuff that wasn't necessarily planned. There is a lot to say for planning. And I do love that she spoke about how she does storyboard. And even as a photographer, you guys, that's a really great idea. Like it's a great idea to storyboard your session if that's what works for you, right? Like, don't try and be someone else. If you know that the planning is going to calm your anxiety and make you feel more prepared, then that's what you should be doing and spend the time to do it. But if you're kind of like me and, I like to have a little bit of a plan, but I really like to flow. I'm really big in flow. And I also am very good in the moment. And I know that about myself. So if I wasn't good in the moment and I know that, like I needed some help in posing, then I would prep that. But I know that I'm just better when I'm in rapport with my client and some of my best ideas just happen when I just don't plan. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is the location we need to go right there. Like if I see something like when we're out and about and things just drop in. So I know that I tend to work a little bit better when I allow myself to, just be willing to be flexible, right? But you have to know yourself. That's all part of the self-awareness. And I hope that this show in general has helped you with that. If nothing else, I hope that it has helped you find your path with your self-development and self-awareness, because I feel like so many of us just, kind of float around, live hypnotically. And I just think it's so much more effective and more peaceful to be intentional about all of that. So once again, thank you for being here and listening and sharing, and go out there and do your sharing for the giveaway. I'm excited to just give away a whole bunch of stuff over the next 7 days. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. Some of you guys from the very beginning of me launching this show. And I truly, truly appreciate you guys so much. You have no idea. Thank you so much. There's nothing that I love more than hearing from you in my DMs, telling me how a certain episode impacted you. And that just keeps me going, even when it's super hard to keep going. So thank you so much. Have a fantastic rest of your week. I'll see you next time. Love you. Bye.